the summer before last, I had a solo exhibition in Detroit in the Omni Gallery called American Gods, and there was a exhibition attached to it called the Golden Boy series, where I did a series of 10 drawings of black men who've influenced the history of the United States. They were all charcoal, black pencil, and gold leaf on paper, all 33 by 44, I believe, 33 by 40, like each one. And so this was the first one in the series, James Baldwin. This was the only different one because I used multiple pictures of James Baldwin to do this one. And then when I was done, I didn't really like it. And so like I just kind of did these other ones. And then George came to my studio and I was like, I don't like that. He was like, I like that one, put that in there. And so we just went, good call. And it went with the show. But this was the whole series there. And so if you went to American Gods, there was a gallery right before you walked into the principal gallery with the paintings, and you would have been surrounded by these drawings like in the round. And so you have James Baldwin, Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, Jean-Michel Basquiat, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Bayard Rustin, Bill Cosby, Thurgood Marshall, Paul Robeson, and Cornel West. Yay for remembering all the names, Ty. Okay, yeah, this is how these would have looked, and you're going to see there's a series that came later. Since then, I did a couple of more. I did Coleman Young, who's the mayor of Detroit. I did Huey Newton, Andre Leon Talley, Tupac, Biggie, and Barack. So I've done like a few more since then. This one is this painting that you can see right here. This is called Columbia, American Woman. So the series American Gods, this comes from my favorite author, one of my favorite authors, Neil Gaiman, who's a fiction writer, and he wrote this book called American Gods. There's also a TV show on Starz, which is not as good as the book, but in anyway, the show, the book American Gods, it's a fictional book about when different countries started to colonize the Americas. You know, different countries had different faiths, religions, and as they came here, they would bring their gods with them. This book goes off the premise that gods actually exist and walk around us. But as the New World turned into America and became more secular, people didn't believe as much, and so the gods were left to their own devices to wander the streets. And then there's a whole fantastical, you know, like magic narrative that happens to it. But using that simple premise, thinking about the ideal of beings who were brought to this country involuntarily and left to their own devices, I was thinking about that, comparing black people in that way, like being brought here and sort of like left to our own devices, post-Civil War Reconstruction with redlining, mass incarceration, and a number of these other things. And I was researching a lot of Americana, things associated with the image of America. In the early 1900s, people would take these photos in front of flags and they would pretend to be Uncle Sam. They would pretend to be Columbia. They would pretend to be these great spirits of the country, George Washington. And I'm talking about like apple pie, fireworks, the 4th of July, like all these great things that we associate with America. And it was, and as an American and somebody who loves this country, because I love it is the reason that I criticize it so. And I was thinking about what is it like to take these great American tropes and recast them like with black people, and just that recasting, how it shifts the narrative, like in a way. And so Columbia, American Woman, Columbia would have been an icon that was really prevalent in the United States prior to 1941 when Columbia Pictures appropriated the symbol for their movie company. Prior to that, everybody would have known who Columbia was. They would have talked about her the same way that we talk about Uncle Sam is going to do this, Uncle Sam's going to do that, because Columbia was associated with the spirit of America in terms of like taking in the poor, disenfranchised, immigration, helping out those who can't help themselves. And the irony is that it comes from Columbia. When Europeans, just little known fact, when Europeans would take over other countries, go to countries and colonize them, whoever was the principal person who colonized that country, they would name the capital city after that person. So if you imagine the New World, Columbus, right? And so that's where you get the District of Columbia, and they would feminize that person's last name. And so like in the New World, that's why you have the District of Columbia, because they're naming it after Columbus and just making it feminine in sort of a Latin way. In Africa, it's Alexandria. Actually Britannia is like the actual name of that. And so like that's where that actually comes from. And so that's how we ended up with Columbia. And the Statue of Liberty is a Columbia as well. But I was thinking about like in terms of images, if you wanted somebody to protect the poor and disenfranchised, what is it if you take a blonde white woman who's holding a torch and standing regal, and then you give it to this strong, beautiful black woman with the afro and a baseball bat? you know, who's like standing in front of the flag. And it becomes this thing of, is she ready to attack someone? Is she protecting the flag? Is she like, what is this about? And that's okay to think that things, because most of my work's multivalent, and I'm thinking about all those things at the same time. This work is not an indictment of America, but it is an honest critique of it, you know, from the standpoint of a black man. So this is Columbia. This one was done after. This is called Black Madonna and Child, and this was a charcoal drawing. I think this is 5 by 4 feet as well, with gold leaf for the halos. And this, so I created I did this image called the Pietà. This is an oil painting on canvas. This is 6 by 4 feet. But I used 2 images and I liked them both, and so I did this one first and then did the drawing second. But I wanted to do a painting that addressed those issues of gun violence without showing blood or guts or anything particularly morbid that way. And so I started like researching like Michelangelo's Pietà and Titian's Pietà. Pietà is Italian for pity, and one of the 4 times you'll ever see the Virgin Mary looking sad in Catholic art. And so I had my friend Scheherazade Washington Parrish, the same model, who is actually the woman who is probably most of the models. And whenever you see my work and you see a female model, it's probably going to be her. Although I finally got some other models this time, but you know, I'm brand loyal. I don't know, I'm consistent. So like in that way, but Scheherazade and her son actually posed for me, and it was really cool to see that she actually had to have a conversation with her son about what this painting was going to be about, because this is a woman presenting her son to an audience and basically saying like, look what you've done, like America, like look what you've done to my son. And even at the end of it, like, she's still an American. We still love this country, but we have to call it like we see it and see like with this type of state sanctioned violence against little black boys, it's a thing that needs to be brought to others' attention. And so that's what this painting was about, and this was just a variation on that, like in terms of a drawing. This is the actual companion piece to this one, and so this is called Uncle Sam, as opposed to Columbia, American Man, Uncle Sam. And I was thinking, you know, what does it look like when you switch out jail? Uncle Sam was created by this illustrator, J.L. Flagg, during the 1800s, but Uncle Sam didn't become really, really popular until World War I, when they needed to recruit people to join the army. And so Uncle Sam became associated with America's military might. Even though we talk about that with taxes, it's most closely associated with like the military force of the United States. And in terms of thinking about militarism and being intimidating, it's like, what if you switch out an old white guy with a flag suit that's saying, I want you, and you make it like a cool black guy with a joint and a pistol in his holster, you know, like sitting there and like, in the same kind of seductive way saying that he wants the viewer, like in that way. It still plays on these types of tropes, but it's more of what I would say a pragmatic way you would think about somebody who would intimidate you today, as opposed to, I mean, I wouldn't be like some old guy with a suit, you know, like pointing at me. I don't know if I would be affected by that, but this, you know, this is just my take on that in terms of like using blackness to replace that particular character. This is called Post Hope. This is oil on paper, 8 by 5 feet. And so, you know, I wanted to do a picture about sort of like life in America post Barack Obama. And when I painted it, you know, I was done. I did the flag and everything, and I don't know, it was just missing something. And so I wanted to kind of give this, if I could give a history lesson in like one image. And so I went to the Library of Congress website and typed in, you know, like African Americans. And these were all these images that are collaged in the white stripes. These were the images that actually came from that. And the Library of Congress, I think, is fascinating because it's the collective memory of the United States. Like things that go in there, they're a matter of national record. And I was like, this is fascinating me that this is the way that the United States remembers blackness, because a great deal of the images were negative. There were some positive ones, but I mean, like, they were really, really in the minority relative to like a lot of the harsh things that came up. All of these two were royalty public domain, except one picture of where Barack and Michelle are dancing. Like, that's a really famous picture. But my friend Rashawn Rucker took that, so that's the only one I put it on there, and he won an Emmy for it. So it's like, I didn't get sued, so, but it's still on there. The most fascinating thing on here, I thought, was it's challenging to see, but Judy Garland from The Wizard of Oz in blackface. Right here. You know, and that blew my mind. Like, I couldn't imagine, you know, I'm like, Dorothy, you know, like from the Wizard of Oz, like, you know, and then you start to research and find like a lot of actors did that during that period because it was the most popular American art form at one point in time. And so I just found that interesting that, like I said, post Barack Obama, this is stuff that has come before, and there's still certain things that, you know, we still have to deal with even to today.